Adoption and expensive. Two words that do not always belong together. There are 120,000 children in the United States that are waiting for a forever family, and adopting through this option is extremely affordable. I'm Marcy Bursack, an adoptive mom of a sibling pair, and also the author of The Forgotten Adoption Option. Twice monthly, I will interview people like adoptive parents and adopted children who have been touched by foster care adoption. My goal is to find more forever families and increase awareness about foster care adoption, because if it were you or me, we would want someone to do this for us. Welcome to the Forgotten Adoption Option podcast. I normally join my guests via the free Anchor podcast app to record, or sometimes I record right next to my guest in person from my phone. For this episode, my guest is actually the one doing the recording from his own audio studio. Hi, Dalton.
How's it going?
So excited to have this conversation. Dalton is a 2021 high school graduate. His mom and I work for the same company, and I'm part of a women's group called WICT, which is Women in Cable Telecommunications. And the president of the Midwest chapter told me I had to meet Dalton's mom, Jane, after she heard I had adopted through foster care and wrote a book about it. Jane actually encouraged me to launch this podcast and was on as a guest on episode 4. So if you haven't listened to that yet, I encourage you to do so after this episode. In this episode, you get to hear the other half of this family's foster care adoption story by hearing from Dalton, who was adopted at age 6. So Dalton, we should dive right in. You were in foster care. Can you tell us what you remember of your first day in foster care, how old you were, what you were feeling, what you experienced?
Yeah, of course. No, I've always used the first day as a good learning point for people who are curious about the whole foster care situation. And I'm not going to lie, the first day was probably one of the most terrifying days of my entire life. The picture of a puppy being brought into a new home with that innocent look on his face, looking super scared, there's a whole new environment in front of him. That's exactly what it felt like. I walked into my parents' house, and on the drive to my permanent home, or I'm pretty sure there's a term you guys use,
forever family, or your adoptive family.
Exactly. On my drive there, I knew I was about to be with a family that I could be with potentially forever, or at least at the moment, that's what I thought. And the drive there, knowing that these people could be my parents for the rest of my life, was already like scary enough, like to process that. And then walking in, and I remember I immediately went to I asked my mom, the very first question was, do you have any toys? Because I was 6 years old.
And what did she say?
And she said, not really. She had one box of these magnet things that are meant for toddlers, and it was in the corner. And so immediately, little head down 6-year-old, walked right to the corner of the room, and it was literally just like a corner. And open the box and just try to keep to myself while my social worker talked to my mom and they had a conversation. It was scary. And the first day was stay like that. I remember my mom was trying to start conversation and learn more about me, such as asking, I remember her asking me what kind of food do I like and stuff like that. And I was quiet, looking around at everything, still trying to process, looking at family pictures, who's my new family type thing. It was scary, but I was only 6, so there's only so much I could understand.
And it sounded like, so if you're 6, you were on track developmentally, you were verbal, you were able to talk to her, so she could ask you questions and you were able to answer what you could? Yeah,
of course. No, I was at 6. I wasn't a shy child at all. And it just took about a day or maybe even half a day for me to open up, but I was there with everything mentally. I was fully understanding, correspondent, talking to her, and no, everything was fine.
And where was your now forever dad? Where was he?
He was up at our farm about 2.5 hours away. I don't know. I didn't know, and I still don't know exactly what he was doing up there, but it obviously had to be important if he knew that that day was going to be the day that I came. But I don't know if my mom talked about this on the first podcast. I listened to it a long time ago. But I remember there was this old wedding picture that they had on one of the living room tables, and it showed my mom when she was a lot younger, and I'm like, okay, I can see that, right? Then it showed my dad, who looks so much different when he was younger, and I looked at it, and they know this, and they think this is so funny, but I looked at it, I was like, that's my dad. I was like scared almost. It was like this. He looks a little creepy. I'm not gonna lie, but as I saw him, I was like, this guy's not that bad.
You had seen a much younger version of him, and then met the more modern day person. So it sounds like you were aware that you were going to meet this family that could potentially be a permanent, potentially forever family for you. Do you know why you entered foster care?
There was a lot going on at the time. Like, there was a bunch of stuff switching between family homes, and I'm sure if I would have stayed at one home and then all of a sudden I moved to foster care, I would have understood. But with everything going on, from like I moved to my granddad's house for a while, and then I was at like my grandma's, and I just have so many conflicting memories. I didn't understand originally at the time what was going on, but yeah, no, I was confused. But I knew that my mom and my dad couldn't take care of me, and that was all that I understood at 6.
Sounds a lot like what my kids would say, that they just moved a lot and they didn't quite understand the things that were going on. As a child, so like back 6-year-old Dalton versus high school graduate Dalton, is the story that you know about the details of foster care different? Like, have you been told more as you've aged?
Oh yeah, no, it's changed a lot. I was out of contact so me and my sister were crazy close. My birth sister, who I originally grew up with, she's 10 years older than me, and whenever I was put in foster care, she was very upset. And we didn't talk much after that. Mostly because of just like connection issues. We weren't in the same scene or anything, and we didn't talk a lot afterwards because she was going through a lot, and I guess she had some bad memories tied in with me. But fast forward a few years later, we're FaceTiming, and she lives in Colorado, and she's explaining some more things to me about the situation. And after that FaceTime, it really did hit, like everything, like missing pieces of the puzzle all got connected, and I started to realize, okay, that's how it went. That's how this was supposed to go, and this is what connects this memory to this memory, and now I understand everything. Yeah.
Can you share, because I know some of our listeners are people that I actually just read something online recently, someone giving feedback on my book, that they're like, there wasn't a lot about the detail. And I'm like, these stories are not, like, when I tell my family's story, my kid's story is my kid's story, just like this is your story, right? So like, your mom's not going to share the Dalton perspective because she's not you. And so I'm curious, for you, receiving information from a biological sister who went through things but was older and knew more of the pieces, how was that shocking for you? Was that hard to take in? Like, what was that like to hear the pieces of the story?
It definitely, honestly, I had a lot of broken, this could sound, I mean this a lot different than it sounds. I had a lot of broken memories when it comes to like a timeline. I had a memory of this and this and this, and I was confused for the longest time of where everything fit together. And hearing that this is what happened here, or I have the effect of a memory, but I don't know what caused it. Like going into foster care, I had that effect. I knew that I was in foster care. Didn't really know the specifics why. Sister told me, and I was like, yeah, no, that makes sense. It's in the past, and living in the past isn't something I do, and I think it's very healthy. So hearing it's more of just personal, knowing what happened, but it didn't affect me currently. Whenever I heard the news, I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to start thinking about this more or less. It's knowledge to know.
You took it more factual than emotional, it sounds like just to understand the details to that. I'm curious, do you know like who was reporting concerns about your biological family?
To get a little bit more in, it's really hard to explain without getting a little bit more graphic or in detail, but my mom and my sister didn't get along very well, and my mom was she was abusive to my sister. Not to me or in any ways, but to my sister, she was definitely like that juvenile kid who's obviously lashing out for obvious reasons. But she would see her school counselor a lot, and she would have bruises every once in a while. And I think after one really bad fight, it wasn't the physical effect of the fight, but it was the emotional effect. I don't know what it was. The specifics about my sister was just like, yeah, I'm done with my mom, and she went to her school counselor, which she would see every once in a while pretty often. She was like, yeah, my mom abuses me, et cetera, et cetera. And then that got CPS involved and looked more in the situation, and then that got them focusing on me. And that's when CPS really tried to understand the whole family situation. And I was obviously in that situation, and there's this young kid, and his parents aren't able to take care of him like parents should. And the foster care was kind of an effect from that.
So it was really a domino effect of your sister talking to the school counselor and then that kind of translating to you, which is interesting because I just read an article yesterday about how there was funding here in the St. Louis area to put more like a social worker counselor type person into the libraries as an additional place for kids to be able to talk to a safe adult. So it's interesting that for your situation, your sister had that safe adult at school that she could talk to you. Because I know for the foster care system itself, that social worker at school is a primary outlet that people are able to talk to about their concerns. So Dalton, when you were adopted, you actually insisted that your name, like your first, your middle, and your last name remain the same as they were when you were born. So how did your adoptive parents, now your mom and dad, take this request? And why was this so important to you?
So I was adopted, or I was put into foster care with this family when I was 6 years old, and I wasn't adopted till I was 7. So I stayed a good year with them, technically unofficial, right? And I still knew my mom and I still knew my dad. And to put it simply, as a 6-year-old, I knew mom and dad, and then I knew these new people, and I started off with Jane and Joe. And it carried and it carried and it followed and it followed. And when it came time that, we're in court, social court, and the question arises, and my parents already know my answer, but I decided to keep my name. My parents are more than open and willing, and they're super supportive of the situation. They weren't like, are you sure? Are you sure? Like trying to convince me or anything. They were completely fine with it and didn't second guess, and they tried to understand my situation. And I did have the times where I was visiting my mom, and Jane was also there. And if I would have kept it, mom and mom, it would have just been super confusing to my a lot younger brain to like, hey mom, they both look at me or something. But no, they were super supportive of the situation.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's like you're in a shopping area, like a Target, and you're like, mom, and you have 50 people that turn their heads. So I understand that one. So speaking of names, you also called, as you just said, you called Jane and Joe by their first names. You're now adoptive mom and dad. My children actually called my husband and me by our first names initially, and then we shifted to mom and dad when they decided they want to. What made you decide? You kind of explained a little bit about their first names to differ them from your biological family, but how has that dynamic played out for you in social and school settings? Because are you still calling them Jane and Joe?
Yeah. When I talk about them in third person to my friends and other people, I call them mom and dad. But in person, it's a hey Jane, hey Joe, or it's just that situation. No one calls them Jane or Joe. I think my absolute best friend calls them Jane and Joe. But no, call them mom and dad. Is that your mom? Funny. Is that your dad? No, it's fine.
Funny. So okay. How does that work? So at school, so it sounds like what you're saying is at school, you call them mom and dad, but at home you call them Jane and Joe. So when friends come over, you call the people you live with Jane and Joe by their first name. So how does that work? If I was a friend coming over to hang out, what would that be like my first time over here?
So every single time I talk about my parents or anything where I'm not talking directly to them, it's mom and dad. Even if I'm talking to a family member about them, it's mom and dad. But the second I speak directly to them, or even if a friend's over, whoever's over, if I need to ask them, let's say, I'm just going to use an example. Can I play the piano? It's, hey Jane, can I play the piano? Or hey Jane, or hey Joe, can me and him go out to eat? And it's a Jane and Joe. And when people are over, it's happened multiple times. Like, wait, I noticed that you called your mom or dad by their first names. And I'm like, yeah, I'm adopted, and it was that's how I learned to when I was a little kid, and it just followed through, and not most of the time that more questions arise from whenever I say that.
It's a great opportunity to share Right. And it's cute. Their names rhyme. They go together
Yeah,
really
yeah, no,
well.
it is a really cute combination.
Yeah, but it's also interesting as a young child. I think about my children in earlier elementary grades. It's if they got to learn an adult by first name, it was always like Mr. So and so, and or so Miss Jane and Mr. Joe. So it's interesting that you don't have those pronouns. Yeah. You just went straight for their name.
Yeah, no, definitely. It was, yeah, I just went straight into Jane and Joe, and it just stuck.
So you had shared with me when we were preparing for this that your biological parents had passed away. Your biological dad passed away when you were 7 years old, and then your biological mom passed away when you were 13 years old.
Yeah.
And that whole loss triggered a stage of kind of experimentation for you. Can you talk about that season and like what you went through?
Yeah, no, it was a really surreal at first, and most of my younger years, like, didn't really process my dad passing away. Just a kid there, and everybody knows who I am, but I'm there. I'm not crying or anything. I'm just kind of like the object everybody's looking at, going, "Oh, poor him," but I have no clue yet. And same thing with my mom. Even though I was 13, it wasn't more of me being clueless as much as it being surreal. It didn't really seem real, and I'm sure that's not too uncommon with situations like this. But it really starts to sink in around 15, 16, anywhere between the 14 to 16-year-old range, and I'm just more of an isolated, mentally more isolated, so I didn't really have the best ways of outletting or expressing the way I felt. Was upset, and constantly like, am I going to see them ever again? Just questions like that. And it was triggering a lot of things. I originally was, I think the worst thing, and I started right off the bat, it was a bad week or something, and I'm not going to get into the specifics, but I started using opioids for a small portion, and I think my parents briefly know about that, and they barely know about it, but that's okay because it was a brief moment in my life. I have a really good friend who ended up knowing about it because I didn't know how serious it was, and something that serious, I didn't. If I'm gonna do it, I did not want to be the only one that knows about it. 'Cause something happens, But they within a week helped a situation. They threw it out. They were helping me through it, and I think after that, it was too hard at my young age to just immediately quit. I think I moved to small stuff like ibuprofen. And then after about a week of that, it was off of that. And then I had a small, and it was these were triggered by the experiences that I had. But then after that, I had an addiction to nicotine for a long time, and that was a very long time, and it only recently stopped. But yeah, it definitely impacted me emotionally, and it wasn't until the getting off the original opioids that I started to get more ideas on how to express myself. My friend got me into writing, like a poem, not a poem, but like a diary type situation, right? And then that turned in personally as a musical. I'm really interested musically, so then that turned into a little tiny bit of poetry, which turned into music, and then it turned into composing my own music, and then producing it and using that currently, as of now, as a way to express myself. Or if I'm ever upset about a situation specifically, I'm mad. Let's say I'm mad about this one specific thing. Hop up at my desk or in bed with a pencil and write down what makes me upset into song lyrics, and then within a week try to make it into a song. And most of those specific songs don't ever go out online or anything, but it's a great way to just get out the way you're feeling. Instead of having to talk to someone, you verbally make it into a song.
Yeah, it's like music therapy that you've kind of found yourself. It's
Perfect.
Interesting how you went through a very dark stage and then found this like creative outlet and something you love, which is interesting. But I can also hear this listener in my head. I don't know who they are, but I know someone's asking, they're going, okay, you told me Dalton's in high school. How did he get his hands on this stuff? So they're thinking, how do I protect my kids from getting their hands on these drugs? So what do you say to the listener that's wondering that, Dalton?
It definitely wasn't. It was a little bit of a situation where it was a coincidence. In no way was I sitting at home thinking, you know what, I'm upset. I want to do this terrible thing. Google something on how do I go and get these drugs, or it was, and for the sake of identity, it was a friend out of wisdom teeth removal. It was prescribed opioids, narcotics, and was like, yeah, talking about how, yeah, they were X, they were this, they were that, off of them now, blah, 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 and took him from his car. Very, very bad decision. But it's not something that, kids are just going to always find themselves in. It was just a strange coincidence that happened at a strange time.
Yeah. Which, you were in a dark spot. You had gone through a lot. And one of the things that I've loved in getting to interact with you, Dalton, is how true you are to yourself and your story. And I'm curious, kind of going back to your creative outlet, because as I mentioned to you before, I have a creative family. My husband's an artist and my kids have their own studio space. And so we really value the creative side of things. And so I'm curious for you, like if you were to explain, you kind of liked the term music therapy, but if you were to explain some of the feelings of what you get from that time where you're processing through music, like you're going through your feelings and your emotions, like how would you describe that?
There's, and this is all like self-diagnosed. I never bothered to go get this specifically. As I gotten older and realized that I probably have I'm probably bipolar. I realized, and I've learned to control myself a lot better, and I'm very mentally stable. Personally, I strongly believe that, and I'm happy about that. But there's just a feeling of overwhelming, whether it's anger or sadness, to the point where there's just a time where you just want to, like, I don't know if you know what the term flex out means.
What does flex out mean?
Flex out is when you flex every muscle in your body out of like anger or sadness, and you're just mad. And there's just,
and for those that can't see, because I'm sitting next to Dalton, he's like taking his arms and like almost like going into like a fetal position, but he's clenched up, so he's like tight. He's not like flexed out. He's like up in a ball. Yeah,
and it's just like it's an outburst of emotion. So if it's sadness, it's just an unwhelming amount of just loud sobbing, or if it's anger, it's just like I just said, like clenching your muscles really tight and wanting to like absolutely scream into a pillow or punch a wall. And the outlet of being able to put that through music and calm down when you're writing, because writing it's a soothing thing, and it's a quiet, self-isolated activity, right? And that's calming. And when you go into recording the lyrics and recording yourself say and sing these lyrics that you wrote, you start finding yourself get emotional over these things, and you just take it out, and you can hear, once you've recorded these things, the emotion in these lyrics. You can hear the emotions of what you just recorded. As you're recording it, it's all in the moment, and you're just reading these lyrics, and you don't notice yourself, and then you listen to it back and you go, wow, I was really in the moment. These were getting to me. And it sounds better when it's raw and it's real. For example, like I said, I don't put a lot of these personal outletted songs out just publicly and posting them. I posted one, which I think is a great example of what I'm trying to say with the emotion attached to the voice. Here's a little snippet of it. All these problems, no stress. Why do I feel homesick in my own home? Is it normal or am I going insane? Waking from a nightmare, realized it is real life, cause I'm living at a time where we both can't be alive. Looking in my mirror, see a picture of your smile. Wow, I look away, I hear your last words just fall down my face. I'll read your letters as if you just sent them, then I write you back some as if you can.
It's such a healthy outlet, right? That it's such a healthy way to express yourself.
Yeah, no, it's easily it's the healthiest. It's been the absolute best, and I still to this day use it. And as much as I feel like I don't need to anymore, I'm a lot more grown up and a lot more stable. I still find it as a really fun hobby to get into and to keep me on the right track.
Yeah, and it's one you can do by yourself. It's one you can have a jam session with friends. I mean, it's such a great way to connect with your inner self as well as others.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I started recording and doing this kind of music thing by myself, and everyone's at a young age gets embarrassed by their own voice. So they get embarrassed, like, oh, I don't want to sing in front of people, I only sing in the shower type thing. That's how I was. I started doing this stuff for 2 years by myself. I'd wait until my parents were out of the house. Like, I'd ask them sketchy questions, like, when are you leaving? When will you be back? And I know in their heads, they're thinking, what, like, mischievous? Is he planning a party? Is he planning to go to someone's house? Is he planning to do alcohol or something? And realistically, I'm just wanting to know the time frame and when they'll be out of the house so I can be loud and record and stuff like that. And I did that for 2 years straight. And it took a little bit for me to open up to my parents. After those 2 years, I started opening up about the music, and they were like, oh, so this is you type situation. And it wasn't just like, here's music, here's all my music. It was, here's a snippet of a song. By the way, I make music. And it was difficult to open up originally. And yeah, I've been doing this. But
this other life that I've been living in your home and I haven't been telling you.
Exactly. And it was definitely funny because originally I remember the first time I started writing, and then after that I went into wanting to put these songs that I've written into music. And so I wanted to get a microphone for Christmas. And originally I put that like on my Christmas list when I was younger. And I just had to come up with like some, excuse my language, like BS reasons of why I wanted this microphone, whether it was like for gaming. I couldn't come up with other stuff for like gaming or like voiceovering a school project. Like, oh, a microphone would just be nice to have. And realistically, I just wanted it for music, but I didn't want to tell them that because I just didn't want them knowing at the time. Yeah.
Did you get the microphone?
No, I had to buy it myself.
So it wasn't compelling.
Yeah, no, I bought my first microphone, second one, and then the third one, which I'm using right now. And this is good enough for me to use for probably the rest of my life.
And it's a cool microphone that he gets to use. It's like lit up red. I'm holding one that's black, which is fine. I'm used to the one I'm holding. You have one that's like very fancy and...
Yeah, no, it's a really nice microphone, and I knew it was a little expensive when I got it, but at the same time, I know I'm not going to need to upgrade again.
Sure. To get like investment piece.
Yeah, 100%.
It's great. So, Dalton, as you're heading off to college, I mean, you're graduating. So by the time this airs, you will have graduated. And you've been open with your adoption story. I know not just with me, but from the stories your mom has shared with me, and you even shared with your neighbors, with your peers, with your church community. Do you think that you're going to change anything about that as you meet new people in a college setting?
I don't open up like immediately, like let's say there's this topic that comes up where it would be a great opportunity to just, hey, I'm adopted, blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's more of if the situation needs it, kind of like right now. It's a podcast. What's the word? It's a podcast informing adults about foster care, and I'm fully opening it up. And whether it's a person I've been in a relationship for a long time, and I think it's time for them to like learn about me a lot more than I am, but absolutely not embarrassed or worried about telling people about my story, or not really my story, but about being adopted. Hey, I'm adopted at 6. These are my real parents. That's why I call them Jane and Joe. But also at the same time, I don't go around saying, like, immediately at the first opportunity that I get, hey, I'm adopted. I was adopted at 6, blank, blank passed away. Like, I don't just go around saying it, but I'm not hiding it at all. When the situation comes up, I think it's a wonderful time to share. I'm more than willing to. I don't get emotional sharing the story, and in a lot of situations, in a variety of situations, it can be incredibly helpful, such as right now. And I'm going to keep going forward with it. So as I get older, there's going to be people who are wanting kids, or just like the podcast right now, who are wanting kids and can't have them, or they're thinking about adoption, or they're worried about how a kid reacts to something. And I was like, hey, I was adopted. This is how I reacted. And yeah, I think it could be a lot useful for other people. God put me in the situation, and I strongly believe he did it because he knows that I can go through it and I can handle it. And he wouldn't have put me through it if it's not going to benefit someone else. So if I can help somebody else with my situation, would love to, would absolutely love to.
So let's take that one step further. And I'm thinking, I just was pulling up a research study that Dave Thomas Foundation put out, and it was about like the motivations and the kinds of people that adopt. And your age that you were, so you were 6 when you met Jane and Joe, and then 7 when you were adopted, and for whatever, you were part of their family. So whatever that legally means, I don't really care, because I had the same kind of story with my kids. But there's something that happens for people that they get afraid or nervous or turn it down. And for your situation, Jane and Joe had already raised biological children, so you weren't their first kid.
Yeah.
And you were an older kid. And so I'm wondering if you're talking to a listener out there who is sort of thinking about this. They probably haven't told anyone yet, because that's what I know happens, is that like people research but don't tell families. So they're listening and they know your story now, Dalton, but you may never meet them. Like, what would you say to them about their anxieties related to, I don't know if I could adopt a 6-year-old. Like, I don't know that I could raise a kid that went through what Dalton did. What would you say?
Anxiety is something that big of a decision. Anxiety is going to be there. There's no way of trying to like figure out a way to do it without a little bit of anxiety, and it's completely normal. And I can only imagine, like, I only know my situation and my side of the story, and I feel the exact same way Jane and Joe do. They can only imagine how I felt, and I seriously can only imagine how they felt. But in my situation, and I know this is 99% of other situations, I am so blessed currently, and it's only because of the foster care and the adoption and the family I was put into. It's gonna be a little rough road at start. You know, you gotta learn, you gotta get used to this new family member, and you gotta learn who they are, and they've got to learn who you are, and you've got to get used to each other. But just like you meet anybody else, the second you get comfortable around each other, it's beautiful. It's just a beautiful story that plays out just like anybody else's does, and it's wonderful. And I'm so blessed, and I hope a lot more kids can end up where I am.
How long did it take you to get comfortable? Do you remember?
It's funny is like I said a while ago, I'm not a shy person. But anybody in the situation that I was when I walked in on the first day would have been incredibly shy. I think it seriously took about a day for me personally. I would have to guess it might take anywhere between a day to a week to fully get comfortable. But, you know, after you get through that rough shell of this kid that you're welcoming into your family, once you get past that rough shell, it's amazing. It really is. You don't feel much difference knowing that they're adopted. It just feels like your family.
Like family, you have that connection. It just feels normal and like it's been that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Dalton, I have loved hearing your story, and thank you for being so honest and open to sharing it. Thank you also for recording this episode. That's so talented of you.
Yeah, of course.
And I think our listeners are hopefully encouraged to hear a story of someone. I mean, you were adopted much younger in life. You're 18 now, and we're 6 back then. And so it means a lot that you're speaking up on behalf of 120,000 children in our country that are waiting to be adopted. So on their behalf, thank you for being on the podcast.
Yeah, of course. It was wonderful. And I'm super excited and blessed to have the opportunity.
As a listener of the Forgotten Adoption Option podcast, you are helping raise awareness about foster care adoption and the 120,000 children who are waiting for a forever family. You can also help raise awareness by leaving a review, subscribing, sharing, talking about, and liking this podcast. If you'd like more information on adopting a child or sibling set through the foster care system, visit my website, ForgottenAdoptionOption.com. There you will find out how to get started, and you can even order a copy of my book, The Forgotten Adoption Option, which will guide you through the entire process, and it is available in paperback, audio, and ebook. I welcome you to reach out with questions, comments, and your own story. I would love to hear if you're signing up for training or where you are in the adoption process. You can connect with me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Just search for Marcy Bursack. Thank you for tuning in, caring, and sharing, because every child deserves a family.